So now we're going to take a look at 2. Zoom enter. I'm going to go Z enter, W enter, zoom window, and I'm going to pick this object here. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start with my linear. And like I said, we want to keep it between views. So I'm going to start with the top. So I'm going to turn my O snaps on here to here. And I am going to do my baseline here to here. Okay? And I'm going to do linear from here to here. And I'm going to do a baseline to the next one up. Now, I might as well give myself a little bit of room, so I'm going to move this over. I'm going to move it over 0.25, just to give it a little bit of space, because that's a little bit too on top of each other. So I'm going to pull that over. Now, because I don't have a lot more space, I can actually do the bottom of this. I like to do one view at a time. This height here, you can also see it's basically this distance here, but I can measure it easier on this one than I can because I have to go through the view. Like I said, we'll keep all of the dimensions in between the views. Now, I don't want to have to drag this straight up, so on this one I'm actually going to dimension from end point to end point and pull it down here. Now, I can do the linear again, go end point to end point, and not have to use the base command and just snap it to that end point. Now, to get the depth in here, it's already all cluttered up over here, so this time I'm actually going to have to go to the other side. Now, it's important to understand why we're doing this for clarity's sake. I'm going to pull this a little bit further away from it so it's not on top of that arrowhead. Now, in this one, to be able to see this flat area here, I could have dimensioned it on this side, but I've got a lot more room to dimension it up here. I could move this up, straight up, to give me more room, or I'm going to undo. I can actually dimension from here to here coming down. Okay, notice I do not dimension to hidden lines. Now, I can dimension the width of this line here, either in this view or in this view. Okay, sometimes we like to dimension all in one view, so I can do the dimension here, and then I can do an overall dimension here as such. Okay, so it's really, sometimes it's an option of where you're dimensioning and what looks good. Now, I don't like how the arrows are like that, so I don't like the stacked here, so I'm going to do it here to here, and then I'm going to do another one from end point to end point, like that. Okay, so then we would just be doing the math on this length here because we know this width and the overall length. So let's take a look at the next one. On the next one, what we have is we've got some circles going on. All right, so again, we want to measure, we want to do dimensions between views. So we've got a circle and a square or a rectangle that's hollow all the way through. So you can see these little notch out, or it's not hollow all the way through, it's just notched out. So you can see these hidden lines here representing the notches. So first we're going to do a dimension from, let me zoom in on this. If I hold my pan, if I hold my cursor and I scroll in and out, wherever my cursor is, it scrolls in and out. So when you're in an area that you need to zoom into, hold the cursor there and scroll in and out. Or you can do the window. Z enter, W enter. These are just different methods of working the drawing. So I'm going to do linear, and I'm going to go from end point to end point and pull it up. And I'm going to do baseline again because I'm always coming off of the main line. Now, when I do baseline, it sets them too close, so I'm going to go ahead and change that baseline instead of having to change all the time. I'm going to change that to 0.6 for the baseline spacing, and then go OK, set current, and close. Now I'll go baseline to here. See how it now allows me to pop up higher? Okay, so there's a little bit of different distance in between. Now this is almost too close to each other, so you can move this up 0.2 to give it a little bit more space. Okay, now I'm going to dimension the circles. On the circles, I've got 2 diameters, so I go diameter, and I pick this one, and I just pull it up. Usually they say they want a 60-90, but as long as it's legible for the most part, it's fine. Pick diameter, and pick the diameter, and pull this one up this direction. All right. Now, let's take a look at this one. So, in the next part, we have circles and we have linears, right? So, we'll start with the linear, endpoint to endpoint, pick. I'm going to do baseline, pick. I'm going to do the height. So notice what I'm picking for the dimensions. When you're looking at this, usually most of your dimensions are on your front view. Okay, so that's too tight. So I'm going to move this over. I'm going to move this over 0.3. Shift this down. Actually, I'm just going to move this over, and then I'm going to move the entire object over again. 0.2. Now, how do I dimension this width here? This length. You can see it up here. From here to here is represented by this line here. Okay? So it's easier to dimension up here than it is through here because it have to be pulling up or pulling down. So it makes more sense to dimension it up here. Same with this. I'm not going to dimension this one because it's already here. I can see it easier here for the width of it than with this line in here. Basically, it's that width here. Now, to see this cut here, it's easier for me. I could have drawn it straight up from here, but it's easier for me to see this here, that length here. Now, that's too close. So I'm going to move this up 0.2. Okay? It's still a little close, so I'm going to move it up one more. All right? Now I have to dimension the right side view. I need to know where this hole is. I could dimension it on this side, but like I said, I want to keep the dimensions between the views. So I'm going to move this over 0.3. Actually, I'm going to move it over, should have moved it over 0.5 total, so I'm going to move it over another 0.2. And I'm going to do linear from here to the center of this object here. Okay? That is too cluttered. That's just too close to each other. Highlight everything and move it over, and I'm just going to pull it over. You can see how far I'm pulling it over. 0.8, 1. I'm going to pull it over 1. That's plenty. Okay? Now, they don't always have to be the same distance between views. When you go to take the mechanical drafting class, the instructor may specifically state what the dimension between objects needs to be. For right now, we're just creating the dimensions to make it look good. All right, now I need to do the diameters or the radiuses. You can do radii for arcs is typically what you see. These were diameters because they are circles. We have an arc here, so we're going to do a radius. So pull this down, pick radius, and pick the object. Now, sometimes the radius, they want to have it from the center and have the arrow point out. If I type dim at fit, F-I-T, and we put into, and I redo that radius, click it here, notice that how it pulls. Okay, you can pull this up. I'm going to get rid of that one. my ortho is on, and I can pull this over. All right. If I do the diameter with a DimaFit at 2, look what it does. It holds it to the center. So DimaFit allows you to have multiple ways to measure it. Now if I go dim at fit and I say 1 and I do the diameter, it varies. So depending on where I'm at with this, how it looks. Okay, if I go DimaFit at fit and I say 3, so there's 1, 2, and 3. This is 2, and I click on this, 3. So this one here is 2, this one's 1 and 3, and this one is 2. So you play with that, which one you like the best, or which one is the typical for whatever standard you're using. So I'm going to rotate this over here and bring it down. You don't want it too far away. Okay, so that looks good. So I'm going to pause here, and then we're going to take a look at a few more.